During the time period of 1849 to 1886 was a time of war between the Apache Indians and the U.S. government. Most of the conflicts between the United States and the Apache were in the Southwest and also with Mexico. The Apache Indians were people who had strong beliefs and wanted their way of living to remain, and against all odds, their culture is alive today. The time period of the Apache Indian Wars was dreadful for the Apache, and will always be a time of sorrow and gray area in U.S. history. But the Apache people have moved past it, and have overcome more than one could imagine. The Apache Indians are thought to have arrived in what is now America in the 1500s. There are many different theories as to how they got here, but it is accepted that 5,000 Apache lived in the Southwest by the 1600s. Apache were very restless and were great warriors, which is somewhat related to the Yuma meaning of their name, meaning fighting man. The Apache were one with nature and lived in harmony, but were strong people who would fight for their beliefs. The first wars broke loose from the start of the 1850s. Many wars were yet to come. The U.S. defeated the Apache in the biggest battle of the Indian Wars at the Battle of the Adobe Walls in 1864. At this battle, the U.S. fought the Plains Indians and demolished them. The Apache were strong though, and fought back all they could to preserve their way of life, and they kept their spirits alive. The U.S. now, in 1870s, began to just massacre innocent Apache tribes and killed men, women, and children. The U.S. then started to make deals with the Apache to stop the killing. The government put them on reservations of land that was not near as big to what they were used to. They were to learn to farm the land. They had to change their whole heritage and way of life because the white man thought they were a better race. Not all Apache agreed to stay on these reservations. The main renegade of the Apache was a man called Geronimo. Geronimo was the leader of the Chiricahua Apache Indians. U.S. General Crook tried to reason with Geronimo, and did. Geronimo surrendered, but not for long. Geronimo broke his surrender in 1881 on the San Carlos Reservation and took his group of renegades with him. 700 Apaches went with Geronimo and escaped to Mexico. Geronimo reasoned with Crook multiple times, but continued to flee. Crook was labeled a failure and resigned, and his place was taken by General Nelson Miles, who would capture Geronimo in September 1886. Geronimo and his war party would eventually be sent to imprisonment at Fort Pickens in Florida. The U.S. broke their promises to the Apache scouts that worked for them and sent them to imprisonment as well. The U.S. piled them into cattle cars and shipped them to prison. After Geronimo's surrender, all major conflicts were done between the Apache and the U.S. The Apache were treated like dirt, but they have never stopped fighting to keep their culture alive. During the Apache Indian Wars, the Apache Indians and their culture was at the verge of being demolished. The Apache had strong beliefs and a fighting spirit. They are still strong in their beliefs, and their fighting spirit has transitioned to them keeping their culture alive through the ages.